smaller teams. We are certainly feeling this at Atlassian, especially in our research and design orgs. We're not alone. David Huang, design legend and leader of our AI design organization at Atlassian, recently captured this sentiment in his awesome newsletter, Proof of Concept. Give it a subscribe. Companies today are looking for ways to operate leaner. Doing more with less is not just a temporary phase. It is our reality for the foreseeable future. And honestly, that's a tough pill to swallow. As a design leader, I would love to tell my team when they're currently stretched thin that there is help around the corner. But today, I want to share how these constraints have actually helped our team work better and ship better experiences. But first, let's go back in time a little bit. I joined Atlassian 13 years ago. I know, that makes me a dinosaur in tech. I was a recent college grad, actually wanting to work in arts administration, but just looking for any paying job. I eventually moved into our customer advocates org, which was our inbound sales support team. I moved to Sydney for what was supposed to be a 3-month secondment and ended up as 6.5 years growing my career from a technical writer turned content designer turned design manager. Fast forward to 2020, crazy year, I became an official Aussie, everyone went remote, and my husband and I relocated back to the US. At that point, I started working on Confluence and Trello, my 2 favorite Atlassian products, though I'm not biased. And last year, mini life goal, I spoke on the TED stage as part of our annual town hall, and I had to condense a complex story into just 90 seconds. In one more little doing more with less life lesson, last year we welcomed our gorgeous baby girl, and I'm currently figuring out how to do more as a design leader while operating on a lot less sleep. Whew, I don't know. I don't know if I figured that one out yet. So let me focus a bit on Atlassian. For those of you who don't know, our mission is to unleash the potential of every team. We build collaboration software products like Jira, Confluence, and Trello. Confluence fits into this story by providing that place for teams to create, share, and harness knowledge from everywhere across an organization. Now, that sharing piece is what we're going to dive into today. You may be wondering, okay, permissions, a little boring. It's not AI, I realize. But how many of you have ever received a link to something and gotten that you don't have access message? Okay, probably all of you. Let's just figure that out. So this was a problem in Confluence. This was a screen that all too many of our users were stumbling on due to permissions issues. What led to this? We had a legacy permissions model and 2 entry points that content owners had to navigate to set access to their page. There was a lock icon that opened a restrictions dialog and a share button that opened a share-only dialog. Now, the catch here is that users who were going to the restrictions dialog were adding people assuming they would be notified. They weren't. Other users were going to the share-only dialog, sharing a page with their entire organization, and assuming that would give folks access. It didn't. Okay, this feels like an obvious solution, right? Combine the dialogues. That's it? That's what we did. Talk done. I'm kidding. If only design were that easy. We actually we got really close to trying this a couple of years ago. Our team did an initiative called the New Share Dialog, very aptly named, but there were some problems. Our scope was getting too ambitious, and we were running into problems with that legacy permissions model I just spoke about. While the dialog looked simple and was almost where we needed it to be, there were too many edge cases that were creating an experience that was actually worse than that 2 dialog situation. At the same time, we were struggling with some of our own, ironically, collaboration issues. Our researchers were delivering fantastic research, but it was coming too late in our process. Our designers were then receiving the research rather than collaborating with our researchers more closely, then taking these long, drawn-out decisions, and our scope was creeping up even more. Things came to a head in November of 2022 when we received this message from our leadership team officially pausing the work. The vibes were a little bit like this. It was not great, but honestly, it was the right call, as tough as that was to hear. The experience was not up to par with our quality bar. What we learned and what I took away as a design leader is that we needed to get much better at communicating user insights and escalating blockers to designing experiences those users needed. We also, frankly, needed to do a much better job at influencing our engineering partners and our leadership teams. So, a year after that painful rejection, we regrouped. We had a new strategy, and for better or for worse, we had a business case that we had to solve for. By this point, Confluence Permissions was one of the top 5 reasons that customers were contacting Atlassian support. Top 5 for the whole company. Equally concerning, fewer than 10% of our active users were actually sharing content. This is kind of a crisis for a collaboration tool. This very helpful data-driven business case, though, led to more funding for engineering. Our researchers and designers were still just as stretched for an incredibly complex project. But we regrouped. This was our core team. You'll notice that we have Kyle, legend, dedicated to this project, but he was balancing multiple teams across Confluence. Our product designer, Cole, and content designer, Dan, were also struggling to balance multiple complex initiatives. We needed a new approach, and we needed to work fast. While leadership was basically sponsoring this project, their eyes were all on us. We had to deliver this time. We couldn't fail. So, Kyle worked with Dan and Cole to introduce us to a rapid research method. Rapid research is basically just an agile, team-based approach to research with the goal of reducing the time from first interview to insights being delivered. Kyle designed this process with our designers for our designers. We were really focused on testing actual interfaces and basically providing insight into decision we basically had confidence in, but just weren't confident enough to ship. So, the benefits of rapid research, we turned that 1-month timeline into 7 days. What did this look like? This is a bit of our process in slide form, but I want to call out some of the things that were different to our previous process. So we were still collaborating on research plans. That was nothing new. But this time, our product, research, design, and engineering partners worked together to clearly define the questions we wanted to answer and the prototypes that were going to be used in our interviews. Now, this is not scientific. I know I'm going to have some researchers looking at me like, ugh, but we did not bring the same questions to each user interview. After an interview, we would debrief, analyze the insights, and decide what questions and tasks to build to the next interview. Remember, we already had foundational research. What we were looking for were quick insights that could help us move fast. So we were using a flexible rather than rigid approach. Now, to end this magical 7 days, we drafted design decisions that we wanted to move forward with and actually build. To help socialize those decisions, we used Confluence whiteboards and Dovetail in tandem. In Confluence whiteboards, we had our observers who were shadowing interviews take live notes in the moments, and then we matched those with Dovetail's automatically tagged and categorized insights. This process helped us better understand why certain things in our prototypes were or were not working, and critically, it helped us better tell the story of what decisions we needed to make and why. There is nothing more helpful in getting a leader or an engineering team on board with your idea than being able to pinpoint to a user struggling with an exact part of your UI. So let me walk you through 3 of these decisions that we made as a result of this process. The first one was about this new combined entry point. So remember, we previously had that lock icon and a share button. We combined them. We found, though, that some users, especially those who are already familiar with Confluence, were taking a few extra moments to get used to this new location. As a result of having these insights readily available, we were able to convince our engineering team to add a lightweight onboarding experience. I know it sounds simple, but as I'm sure many of you also know, onboarding is the first thing that's often on the engineering chopping block. Next up was a decision about one word. This is where my content design nerd comes out. In the dialogue, we had a call to action button that we tested with a word, save. See, I'm already combining them, save. The word was save. And our content designer, Dan, and I actually got into a lot of pretty fiery debates about whether that button should say save or share. The thing is, you all probably have your opinions on what it should say, but we noticed in research that users actually needed both buttons to validate their conceptual model. That's cute. Inside Out 2025. Anyway, once we get that back, we learned that our users actually needed both buttons. So we worked with our engineering team to create a dynamic call to action that changed from save to share when the notify button was ticked. So think of it this way. If you have a page that's private, let's say I have a note of performance notes for my team, obviously I don't want everyone to see that. When I'm adding someone to my team, when I'm adding someone to that page and I want to share that content with them, that action should be share. If I'm removing someone from accessing to the page, share doesn't actually make sense. So we fixed it. The last decision that I will illustrate with you in interpretive dance was about the footer to our modal. We had a footer with secondary actions that we noticed in research were making some users a bit confused. So we made a design decision to remove the footer, but we got it wrong. Why I'm sharing this is because this is rapid research. We had to remember that the decisions we were making in the moment were being made in isolation. We knew that we had to be flexible in those decisions. Hey, we're back. And so we socialized this with other teams and realized that those actions in the footer were needed for other use cases across Confluence that we had not been testing for. So where did we land? We rolled out our new share experience in an early access program last September and officially launched to 100% of Confluence Cloud users this year. We shipped a more streamlined sharing and access experience. We added a way to add users with smart suggestions, so it was one click to share with the person you work most closely with. We added more clear controls about when you notify people you've added to a page, and a way to add a custom message. We also added a way for you to confirm if you actually wanted to share this page with 100 people in your marketing organization. In addition, we added ways to confirm and fix access issues that were previously requiring you to get out of your context and fix a permissions problem elsewhere in the product. The results? We saw a 50% increase in our task success rate, an 87% increase in unique users sharing content, and critically, an 80% reduction in access issues requiring support. This alone has saved Atlassian hundreds of thousands of dollars in support costs. So not only did we ship a more usable product, we saved our business money. Woo! These results were made possible by rapid research. This process was not just about condensing our timeline, it was also about the collaborative nature of how our team worked. At the heart of what changed, when our teams were participating in research directly, these insights became a part of their thinking. Our team together developed an intuitive understanding that informed countless decisions. A huge shout out to this team for shipping an incredibly complex solution. Now, before we get too excited on this kind of unicorn example, I want to see if this approach works in other products. We are actually testing it across Atlassian, and I want to give a quick shout out to my current team, Trello. When I joined Trello again earlier this year, we were in the middle of a huge strategic pivot. We are changing our focus from lightweight project management to personal productivity. As part of this pivot, we are introducing 2 new concepts, an inbox and a planner, as well as an entirely new navigation pattern. And navigation, one of the hardest things to test and introduce users to. We had to move fast. Again, our leadership team was giving us a little bit of a green light to go ahead and test this hypothesis, but we had just months to build and ship a beta experience. Our incredible designer, Niranjan, had a big ask. He used rapid research methods to collaborate with product design and engineering partners, again, using prototypes that mimicked these new concepts in the reality of what our users were experiencing. And he used iterative methods to test multiple questions throughout that process. He single-handedly tested 40 productivity tasks across 7 experiences with 22 participants. And the result? We launched that beta. Trello is now available in its new form for 100% of users in an opt-in beta. We are getting some positive results, but as the head of design, I have to do my due diligence and ask you all to try it today, and please send me your feedback. Now, rapid research, again, is not an incredibly scientific method. It is a way to cut corners, but to cut corners intentionally. It should not be used to replace all research methods in your organization. For both Confluence and Trello, rapid research helped us during critical moments when we already had a shared understanding. Our teams were aligned. We just needed to validate some more concrete design decisions. We also needed a compelling story to tell our leadership teams when trying to get them on board with what we wanted to deliver. Now, if you're thinking about, okay, sounds great, but how do I go back to my stakeholders who might not be convinced of this idea? Keep these 3 benefits in mind. With rapid research, we saved time. We condensed that research cycle from 1 month to 7 days. We boosted the confidence of teams that needed it. And we improved both our usability outcomes and our business outcomes. So let me leave you with this thought. Yes, resources today are limited, and they will be for the foreseeable future. Our teams are stretched more than they have been in a while, but that doesn't mean that our impact can't be felt far and wide. Our team used today's constraints to innovate, and the result wasn't just faster research, it was better design, development, and engineering. Development and engineering is the same thing. We'll blame the mom brain on that one. Anyway, I want to leave you with this final message. The next time you face constraints, whether it's time, budget, or headcount, I invite you not to see them as limitations, but as innovations to innovate. Ask yourself, how might these constraints push our team to work better? What assumptions about our process could we challenge? How might we better support our researchers and designers in delivering work they need to deliver? So sometimes doing more with less doesn't mean compromising on quality. It means finding a better way altogether. Thank you.